need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
Next question is coming from Deborah. Deborah is writing from Brooklyn. Brooklyn? I was just talking about Park Slope. Represent, Deborah. And Deborah is writing, Betsy, I currently live in an apartment. I was thinking of getting a chaise type sectional similar to this one from Joybird. The picture's attached below. My question is, do I place the chaise part up against the wall or use that wall for an end table? In that case, the chaise would stick out a bit into the room, but there is plenty of space for it. Then I could have both end tables for drinks. Or do you prefer sofa tables like this one from West Elm? Not sure I like the look or the thought of reaching back for my items though. Okay, so let's go with your first question. With a chaise sofa, this one from Joybird is very loud in this kind of salmony pink color, so I would want you to reconsider your upholstery choice. But, I don't tend to butt the chaise up against the wall. I do like space. I would be open to having an end table on that side. You just want to make sure it's the same height as the arm, right? Because sometimes the arms on those chaise sofas can be like a 3/4 arm or something like that, where it's almost the back of the sofa. And then it would look weird to have such a tall end table. In that case, on the side of this chaise, I typically like to do a floor lamp. I always like to mix it up personally and have an end table and an end table lamp on one side of a sofa, whether there's a chaise involved or not. And on the other side, have the floor lamp, right? Unless I'm doing a very traditional space that really calls for that symmetry, I think it's nice to have floor lamps in the mix because, of course, they typically provide more atmospheric lighting because they're tall and can kind of have a larger range with the light. But also, it's nice to have everything on kind of undulating levels. So the end table on top of the end table lamp on top of the end table is only a little bit higher than the sofa. But then the floor lamp is quite tall. So it gives us that sense of like an undulating space. It's why I love to incorporate bookshelves, but also have lower things. You don't want everything too tall, but you also don't want everything on that lower back of sofa height level. One example I like to share, which you may have heard on the podcast before, is thinking of your room as a panorama. People rarely buy panoramas of Iowa, no offense, Iowa, because everything's so flat and just plain, right? It's not dynamic and not visually interesting. People are more inclined to buy panoramas of, say, New York City, where there's some low parts, some high parts where you're seeing the skyline, but you're also seeing the West Village go low and the Empire State Building go big. That undulation is so interesting, not just in a picture format, but also spatially. So as you're designing your room, think low and think high. In terms of a sofa table, I understand your concern about reaching behind you. When I think of a sofa table, I think of it less as a place to service me while I'm actually sitting on the sofa. Like I wouldn't put my drink or my snacks or my book there because it is awkward to reach back. Rather, the sofa table is there as display, is there potentially for illumination if your couch is floating in the middle of the room and you need sort of a place to have a lamp, is there so that you don't see the back of the sofa, right? So if I'm approaching the sofa from the entryway and the back of the sofa is facing the entry door, it's nice to have a sofa table there. It's more welcoming than just seeing a wall of fabric. Or if you do have something like a chaise sofa where there's a seam in your couch, seeing an unsightly seam, which really bothers me. I don't actually mind seeing the back of a sofa if it's clean and unbroken, but it's when it has those sectional seams, those breaks, that I start to feel less excited about it. So there we go. Sofa tables purely for display, not generally for snacking, drinking, book, etc. All right. Let me be clear on the book thing really quickly. The book I'm actively reading. I definitely display books on a sofa table, like coffee table books or something like that. But if I was reading my Kindle or my kid is reading Dog Man, we're not going to use the sofa table to throw it on there while we switch to snacking and vice versa. A big thank you to Aton and the Embassy who wrote our theme song. A shout out to Catherine Heller who owns the podcast shop and is our editor extraordinaire. We also want to thank Ginny Sunasan and her team at the Savvy Podcast Agency for their help with our social, our YouTube channel, and so much more. We also want to thank Uploft, which is our parent company who supports this podcast. And lastly, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for all your support.